Okay, hi class. First of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the portfolio. We're going to build it in HTML. I'm hoping that some of you guys, no, I'm hoping that all of you guys have been working on that. It's really important that you start going through Unit 4 on Edmentum so that you have an idea of how to set up the page and learn some of the tags. That's really going to get you a long way in this project. Um, but right now, I'm also going to go through some of the things and set up a page and kind of show you how that works. But I think that it's important to understand that if you want to actually get into computer programming, you're going to have to be a little curious and want to search these things out for yourself. It's fine for somebody to walk you through step by step or to watch a video and go step by step. But really, the best way to actually code something that fits exactly what you want is to work through it. It's almost like a puzzle, right? Going on Google, figuring out the tags that you need, and learning the code as you go. It's probably almost impossible to remember all of the tags and what all of the tags do. It's more about doing a little bit of research, putting things together, and piecing together your puzzle so that it does what you want it to do. So we're going to do a little bit of that. Again, we're in Visual Studio Code. I know all of you have that set up on your computer. So we're going to program this HTML page with a little CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And I'll show you how that works. But first of all, we're just going to start off in our computer science folder, and which I have right here. This is my computer science folder. There's nothing in it currently, but I do have that folder set up. I'm hoping that you guys have that set up from the earlier project that we worked on. So there's nothing in my computer science folder. I'm going to go in Visual Studio. I'm going to go to File, Open Folder, and then on my machine, I'm going to go to Computer Science 2025. And this is the folder that I'm working within. So I'm just going to say Select Folder. So currently, I do have a folder under there that you won't have. Yours should be pretty blank. And then I'm just going to make a file under here. So I'm going to make a file, and our starting page for our website should always be index.html. That's where the internet gets its instructions for your website. Any landing page that you get to is going to be index. Not always HTML, but it's always going to be named index. So that's where your website will start. So we're going to name this HTML. So I've got index.html. There's nothing in here. So the second file that we're going to use is called style.css. Okay. So we've got these two files, and these are the files that we're going to be building our website in. We're going to start with the HTML, and then we'll style it afterwards. So that's our starting point. If I go back to this folder, you'll see it's created these two files inside my folder, and then you can also navigate to it through this on Visual Studio Code. So I'll go and I'll open this in my web browser. I'm just going to double click on index. It's an HTML file. So this is my index.html. And as you can see, it's completely blank. So in our Visual Studio Code, our index is completely blank. So that's what we're going to start off with, and then we'll get into the coding a little bit. I will say again, I think that the best way to learn is to sort of piece your way through it, solve the puzzle on your own. So if you want to continue to do that, ask questions in class, that works for me. I would definitely prefer that, that you're trying to figure these things out, figure out how the tags work. But if you need a little bit more of a guiding hand, as I continue through this video, we'll go through not all of the steps, but we will go through most of the steps. One of the things that I would like you to do is kind of make your own code. Sure, I guess it would be fine for you just to follow step by step, use the exact same language and the exact same titles that I use. But that's not really going to be specific to your portfolio. So I'm really hoping that you guys will take this seriously, build it on your own a little bit. Yes, you're going to need to use some resources, this video included. to get some step-by-step directions, but I think it's much more rewarding and much more interesting when you're building the code and you're working through it on your own. Okay, so in Visual Studio Code, we're going to just start here on line number one. One of the nice things about Visual Studio Code is it really auto-fills a lot of the things that you need to do. So to get our website started, we're just going to start in Visual Studio Code with this single exclamation point. I typed in the single exclamation point, and then now I'm going to click on this, and it's going to autofill all of these things. So we'll go through this a little bit. Doc type, this is just telling the program that's opening it. In our case, it should be a web browser, that the document type is HTML. The second tag, the tag is these things that we see in dark blue. The dark blue is what's considered the tag, which is telling the web browser how to read this. And the lighter blue are called attributes. So this is an HTML tag, and then this attribute is telling the web browser what is the native language that we're trying to steer this website toward. So where our main language is going to be English, and then we're going to get to the head, which is this whole section, and the body. Okay, so the head contains all of the metadata. The information that you don't actually typically see in the website. In the head, you're going to get information like what characters are we using? Are we using Chinese letters? What kind of letters are we using? I think we learned this at the beginning of Edmentum, the UTF-8. So we're using what letters we're using, what alphabet we're using. So we're using the UTF-8, and then the meta name, this is the viewport. So this is basically telling us what are we looking at this at. The width of our website is going to be based on what type of a device we're looking at this thing on. So if we're looking at it on a phone, it's going to look different than it will on a web browser. Definitely look different on the computers that we use in the computer lab, which are nice wide screens. So those are things that are just built in. And then the title. So the title is what you see in the top of the web page. So in this tab, this is going to tell us what the title of the website is. So the title is going to be what we're going to see up here in this tab. So the title of the website is not actually on the web page itself. It is in the tab of the browser or up in the header of the browser. So we're going to change that. I'm just going to, and I'm sure you'll figure out that I'm a terrible typist as we go. Computer Science 2025. So that's what we're going to title this thing as. I like to just use Control S to save my page. You could also, if it's just more convenient or more comfortable for you, you can just come here and say save. So you're going to want to do that before you'll see any changes in the web page itself. So I changed the title. I'm going to go to my web browser and refresh it. And now you'll see up here the title is Computer Science. So in your heading or in your head section, this information is not on the web page itself. It's just the information and the things that the web browser uses to identify and display your website. One thing that we're going to add, oh, that's interesting. Okay, one thing that we're going to add is we're going to add a link to our style sheet, right? And we'll talk about that more later, but we might as well do that as we go. So this is already pre-filled out as soon as I hit enter after the title. So it wants to link to our relative style sheet, the reference that it's making, the place where the style sheet is referenced is going to be, this is automatically pre-filled here. So I'm just going to hit tab. we named ours a little bit differently than the Visual Studio wants to name it. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So it's style.css. Again, that's the file that we made over here. So now, I'm not going to get into this right now, but this is the style sheet. This is going to determine what our web page looks like, not necessarily the content of the website, but what the website looks like. And we're going to get into that after we get through the content part. So that's the head. There's a lot of other things you could put in the heading, but this is basically information, again, that we're not going to see in the website. It's information that the web browser is using to identify and display what we're looking for. The body, however, the body of the website is all of the things that we're going to see on the web page. So we're going to start off with an H1 tag. Okay, so an H1 tag means header 1. So that's going to determine the size of the font. There's a lot of things that determines. By default, an H1 is a header, the biggest header that you would have for your website. This is all pre-filled by Visual Studio Code. And I'm just going to get rid of that. And then so we're going to say hello world with an exclamation point. And then I'm going to Control S, save. So we'll look at our website, and the only thing that we'll see, we won't see anything called body or anything like that. We're just going to look at our H1 tag. We're just going to look in between our H1 tag, so we should see in fairly large text. No style, no nothing, just hello world. And there it is. Okay, so we've added our first tags, H1, again, header 1, large font. And though that's by default, we'll mess around with that a little bit later on. But for now, that's what we're going to go with. We might as well just use this. One really important thing is you're always, not always, but almost all tags in HTML have a closing tag. So that closing tag is really important. And so that looks like the same as the beginning tag, but with this slash. So I've also put in a P. The P tag stands for paragraph. Okay, so this is just your regular text. So when we save that, and then look at our website, it's going to say hello world in a large font because it's a header, and then our normal size font for our web page, it will say welcome to Computer Science 2025. So let's take a look at that. And refresh. Boom. Okay, so our website is displaying, this is our H1 tag, this is our paragraph tag. Pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, so as you know, what I've asked you to do is reconstruct the Google Sites website that we made. So this is not the Google site that I made, but this is just an example. So here's my portfolio. It's got a little title in here. It's got my name with a nice big background image. A second section, the About Me section. Again, this is just the template. And then finally, I don't know what we would call this, just our personal information section. So I'll show you what this looks like when it's published, but this is the basic idea that we're going for. So we're going to try to build something that's similar to this. So first thing that I notice here is this Bob Jekyll, my name, is a heading. Okay, so it's the biggest text on the site. So we're going to call this the H1. So what I would do is I would go back, and I'm just going to start with just the basics. So our heading is going to be Bob Jekyll. Okay, and then one of the things, I accidentally erased this back, this greater than sign. And this Visual Studio Code does a really good job of saying, hey, look, this bright red H1 tag is saying there's something wrong with this line of code. So even if I didn't know what I did wrong, they're making a suggestion here. I might look at it and say, oh, I'm not really sure. I can't tell what I did wrong. So I'm just going to click on this and it's going to fix it for me. So I got my H1 tag back. So on my site, again, I'm going to make sure I save this, Control S, and then look at the site that I'm building. And boom. Okay, so my heading is now my name. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build this little About Me section. So I'm just going to build this. So this About Me is not quite as big as the name. So I'm going to call this, I don't know, heading 2. I think you can use 6 different headings, H1 through 6, and they just continually get smaller. So I'm just going to make this About Me is going to be H2. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to get rid of this. So my next thing is H2. And it keeps, Visual Studio Code keeps making these suggestions that I really don't want. So I'm just going to type through it. About me. Okay, that's going to be my H2. I must have had my caps lock on. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to save that. We'll go back here. We'll look this side of it. Okay, so as you can see, this is a little bit smaller than the H1. So that's my H2 tag. And then I'm just going to take this text and I'm just going to consider that a paragraph. So under this section, I'm going to say paragraph. And then I'm going to type all that text in, paste all that text in. And then over here, I will have my end tag for my paragraph. Don't forget to save, and then boom. Okay, so I've got my About Me. Here's my text. Currently, the text just runs all the way across the page, and then it wraps itself. If I make my website, my browser more narrow, you'll see that the text is stretching, right? So it's fitting the actual viewport, and that's what this part of our text is. It's just talking about the viewport, like what we see, and the width of the viewport that we're using. So the text changes based on the width of our website. So, okay, so now we've got our H1, our H2, and then a paragraph. So we're just going to look here. So what's next? So then we're going to have another section, and then this would just be our personal information section. I'm going to copy this. This all looks like it's pretty similar to a paragraph. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So we'll just make another line. We're going to say a paragraph. We're going to put this text in there, and we're just going to take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to save this, and then we're going to refresh. Boom. Okay. So you might notice that this is all just one long line of text because the web browser just sees what's between the tags. So if I don't put any tags on it, it sees all of these 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 line, 5 line, just like this gigantic wall of text that I have here in a huge long line. It sees it and reads it exactly the same. So there's nothing that says this is the end of this line. Now there's several different ways that I can add a break. And the first one is just with a break tag. And then we would say BR. So that's a break tag. And then I could come down here and make another break tag. And then now it's understanding the Visual Studio Code is figuring out what I want to do. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to do that. So now they all have a break after that. So the web browser is going to read this as a paragraph. It's reading across. It's putting this into your website. And then this break says, make a new line. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're reading across. make a new line, read it across, make a new line. So here's our breaks. That's telling the web browser to give us another line before it prints the next text. So I'm going to save this. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Boom. Okay, so now we've got our paragraph, our personal information, our phone number, email. Okay, so now it's a little closer to this. So there's definitely some visual differences. But right now we're just worried about the content of the website. We're not worried about the way that it looks. So basically, I'm not quite done. What about this thing up here? So I haven't done this thing up here. So I am going to add that into my website. So it's going to be above. All right. So actually, I'm going to publish this so we can see what this actually looks like. View publish site. Okay. Okay. So I've got this header up here that doesn't move when I scroll down. I've got my H1. I've got my H2. I've got this paragraph here, and then I've got something that we'll call a paragraph right now. We might change it in a little bit. So that's a start. So that is our content. We're going to add this header right now, and the way that I'm going to do that is just simply come back up here to the top. I'm going to give us a couple spaces, and then I'm going to say header. And then between the header, I'm going to say, I think it was CS 2025 portfolio. I think that's what it was going to say. CS 2025 portfolio. Okay. All right. So let's save that and let's see what this looks like now. Okay. So our header is still here. Our H1, our heading 1. Our heading 2, our paragraph, and then another paragraph. Okay, so now this is the basics of the website. This is all of the content of the website. This is the only content that we see in this website. And when I say content, obviously I'm not talking about images or things like that. I'm just talking about the information that's being displayed by the web browser. So we've got this all laid out, and now we're ready to style this thing. Okay. So we'll come back and we'll look at the styling. But this is the basics of how we should start our website, the information that we put into our website. And now we're going to worry about what it's going to look like.